Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Property Hustler Show. My name is Andrew, and today I have Carlos with us, who is a longtime Canadian real estate investor. Started off with house flipping, multifamily investing, and has recently gotten into developments, tapping into programs like the MLI Select, which we're going to talk to you about today. MLI Select, for those of you that don't know, is a program that as an investor should be on your radar. It can be a great tool for you to build purpose-built rentals where you can get favorable loan-to-values up to 95%. You are able to get favorable interest rates, and on top of that, you'll get better amortization periods up to like 55 years. You want to do the math? It will be a game changer for you. So we're going to talk about that right now. He's going to share a lot of great tips and information. So Carlos, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
First time we talked, you said something that was very interesting, which is I'm obviously geared towards shifting our investment strategy and diversifying out of Canada. So I started to do a lot of like US investments and picking up like small to mid-sized multi-residential in like starting in places like Cleveland, Ohio. And I remember you said, well, like right now you're interested in things like MLI Select, right? And you're like, this is actually the only thing keeping me as a real estate investor still investing in Canada. This is the only program that is good for Canadians. So why don't you tell me like why you think that?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm definitely not the only one saying that. So why do I think that? First of all, you'd have to know a little bit about commercial financing. So I want to backtrack slightly, but I got into multifamily real estate in 2019. So it's been about 5 years, and how it works is completely different from residential. So it is purely based on the numbers, and you're buying a business, not a home. So when you're buying a single family home, you look at the floors, you look at the walls, you're like, okay, it's nice or it's not very nice. And then that determines the value. Versus this is like you're buying a business. How much income does it bring in? What are the expenses like? And based on the net operating, that's how much the building's valued. The same as a business. So just want to preface that. Now, for the people who are familiar with commercial financing, the reason I got it, I stayed in Canada because of MLI is because they're offering 50-year amortization through the MLI Select program. Now, we can dive into that program, but essentially you get very favorable terms that keep you here in Canada versus in the States. Sure, you have a lot of cash flow. I totally get the state strategy, but they don't offer 50-year amortization. And that's something that is obviously keeping me here. That's the reason why I'm staying here. You do have substantial equity takeouts if you play your cards right. And that's why I'm in here in Canada.
Let's just do a simple comparison of like a standard commercial mortgage to an MLI Select program. Like if you opt into it, what would be the difference? Like, okay, I think with commercial mortgage, you can do 25 to 30-year amortization periods, right?
Yeah.
And what loan to value and what interest rates are we looking at today?
So a standard commercial mortgage, it's all based on debt service ratio. So you want to get, a standard mortgage, they give you a very cookie cutter one is 25-year amortization and 1.25 debt servicing ratio, depending on who that is. Now, debt servicing ratio is net operating divided by your monthly mortgage. So for simple numbers, if you had a net operating income of $11,000 a year and your annual mortgage was $10,000, your debt service ratio would be 1.1.
Yeah.
Right? So or if you had, $12,000 income and $10,000 mortgage, then it would be 1.2 and so on. So a standard mortgage, they'd want you to have 1.2, 1.25. However, and then that's a 25-year amortization. However, with CMHC MLI, you can get anywhere from 40 to 50-year amortization, which greatly expands your monthly payments. I mean, you're talking from 25 to 50.
Yeah. So
you just chopped your payments down in half, which means that the debt servicing is way better. So you get, and then another thing is that you get 1.1 debt servicing, if I explain that very well. But basically, it's 1.2 on the traditional side and 1.1, which is more lenient on the CMHC side.
Yeah.
Which in simple terms means you get more liquidity because of the terms. You also get up to 95% loan to value, which is substantial. Now, here's the thing. Somebody hears 95% loan to value and their eyes just go crazy. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the debt servicing ratio. If your debt service ratio is 1.1, it doesn't matter how high the LTV goes. It's eventually capped based on how much that building is generating.
Okay. And what's it capped at?
1.1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
1.1 debt servicing, and then 95. I mean, it depends on how many points you get on CMHC MLI Select.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what we'll compare to, let's say, a 35% loan to 35% down, or rather 65% loan to value, which is a lot more common on commercial projects.
Yeah.
And
they go up to 75 usually.
Yeah. They will.
It's on the lender, but yeah.
Exactly. And then we're looking at different interest rates. Like for standard commercial mortgage, what interest rates are we looking at today?
Honestly, it's
right? Like,
it's not 9. I mean, depends. Like, it's all based on the bond market for fixed rates. I think right now I saw them at 5.5. I could be mistaken.
For commercial?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's the thing. So we're paying 9% on this building.
Fixed rate.
I'm actually, no, I think we're on variable.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're tethered on prime, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Prime plus.
So it should be coming down a little bit, but we're on variable.
Right.
But that's also so that we could potentially break it if we need to, right? So we're not on fixed.
Right.
But that's where we have different plans. But okay, so you have like the variable and then the fixed rates versus, do you have more favorable rates with the MLI program?
Yes. So like I said, you have 1.1 debt service, which is already way more lenient, and then you have way higher amortization. So you get, again, from 40, 45, or 50 year based on
the amortization, but the actual interest.
Yeah, you do get a lower interest rate.
Okay.
So I got my most recent one. I got a 4.34 interest rate, but it was a 10-year term.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was a 10-year term, and I mean, you're kind of like, for lack of a better term, signing a deal with the devil, because you're locked in for 10 years. I mean, at the end of the day, it was healthy. It was a good business decision, but first of all, it's very expensive. Like, it's, I'm telling you,
expensive in terms of interest, you mean?
It's expensive in terms of qualifying for MLI Select. I had to spend $1 million in renovation. So it's not like they just give this away because you're a nice guy. Like I spent $380,000 on heat pumps to qualify for the sustainability aspect of MLI Select.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we can dive into, but essentially MLI Select is based on 3 different tiers. So 3 objectives that the government wants. CMHC is an insurer that the government has. So they insure these mortgages, and they want 3 objectives. 1 is affordability, 2 is sustainability, and 3 is accessibility. So accessibility meaning like people who are handicapped and so on, disabled, whatever you want to call it. Like, they need ramps, they need buttons for opening the doors, etc. That's accessibility. You get points for that. You also get points for energy efficiency. So whether you're swapping out your old boiler for a new one, or changing windows, or improving insulation, that sort of thing, you get points for that as well. And then the last thing you get points on is affordability. So if you they go off of medium renter income. So CMHC, this is all public information, by the way. You can Google this. You go at CMHC MLI. You can download a spreadsheet, and they show you median rental income for each major city in Canada. And then they consider 30% of, I believe it's 30% or less of median rental income per city to be affordable. So they have thresholds. If you have, I think it goes up to 80%. If 80% of the units are affordable, you get 100 points.
Yeah.
And up until very recently, you get 50-year amortization, like we've been discussing.
Yeah.
Next week, so this is June 14th, I believe.
Yeah.
And June 7th or June 19th, I believe the day is. So next week, they're going to weigh affordability heavier and weigh sustainability lower, because what they found everyone was doing was simply swapping out their boiler, which they're going to do anyway, and then get these incentives. Yeah. So they are pushing affordability. So they are now giving 55-year amortization on affordability. And on sustainability, they essentially chopped the points down in half. Okay. So what would have got you 100 points today gets you 50 points next week.
Okay. So if somebody wants to purpose-build rental units, right? Yeah. And they want to do this legally, and they want to apply for this great program, MLI Select, which is through CMHC. If somebody wants to maximize what they can get out of it, they have to go off the point system. Mm-hmm. And the point system they're going to be given points based on how much in line they're getting with what the government wants, essentially, right? For like eco-friendly, accessibility, and affordability.
That's right.
And right now you're saying that they're putting affordability first and foremost as the heaviest in terms of getting favorable terms.
Starting next week. That's correct.
Starting next week. Okay, so what is affordable housing then?
Are you talking from an MLI perspective?
Yeah, from an MLI perspective. Yeah.
So from an MLI perspective, affordability qualifies. Like I said, if they have a median rental income, it needs to be 30% median rental income.
Is it Ontario rated or municipality? Canada-wide. Okay.
Canada-wide. So if you go on at CMHC's website, you can download a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it shows you every single major city, not even major city, mid-sized city as well. And they'll tell you what they consider median rental income.
Okay.
So if you look at the median renter income, you get 30% of it. And that's what they consider. Now, here's the big kicker. That spreadsheet is from 2019.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they're
changed.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very affordable.
So wait a
And
minute.
frankly, it doesn't work with today's numbers.
Like, I know we can look this up, but like, will it take into consideration like a 1-bedroom dual income?
I don't know exactly how they got those numbers.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Like, what I'm wondering is like, okay, so average income in Canada is something in around, I think, like 50,000. Median is actually in like the 30s or something like that. But if you take two people living in a rental unit and they're making $50,000 each, and you're gonna make them like $100,000. I'm gonna take 30% of that, meaning $30,000 a year. That's actually not so bad.
Fair point. I wish you were the government sometimes, Andrew. But no, it's off of one person because the numbers are somewhere like they range. My memory's correct, somewhere like 40,000 to like 70. So that's definitely individual. And again, we're talking 2019, right? So, essentially, nobody went affordability for obvious reasons. At the end of the day, these developers are running a business, right? Something that maybe we forgot in this country, but these people are running a business, and they need to make the business work. So nobody did affordability. So now they're trying to incentivize developers to go 55-year amortization. They're going to spread it out even more. I'll be 86, Andrew. 86 years old, I'll pay the mortgage. Seriously, though, right?
Yeah.
So 55-year, that's how much they're going to spread it out. That's what they're doing. And then with sustainability, like I said, today you'd get 100 points for reducing 40% gas emissions.
Yeah.
Today, next week, you get 50 points for the same work. So like I told you, I spent $1 million in renovation in my last project, and I spent $400,000 on 380 on heat pumps alone. Had I done that today, it would have given me half the result.
That's insane.
It's wild.
That's insane.
I mean, next week, but yes, dude, it's a substantial amount of money. So like people think, and you know what, it's very sexy to say these things. 95% loan to value, 50-year amortization. Like, sure, you can throw these things around, but it's one thing that you hear about it. It's another thing to do it.
So I think some people have a misconception that when they've talked to me about it, they think that, they're going to finance you if you have the building plan and everything in place.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure it's so far from that. Like, you have to be able to front the money.
So it's case by case.
Yes.
And it's when commercial, it's not checking boxes. When you're doing a residential mortgage, you're checking boxes. How much does this guy make? What's the annual or credit score? Like checking boxes, right? How long they've been self-employed for, whatever. With commercial, you have to tell a story. And this is when you need a good mortgage broker. So you have to tell your story as best you can. This guy's competent. He's had previous experience. Here's some before and after pictures. Here's some of his previous projects.
Of the contractor or of the investor?
Of the operator. For me, I've never had partners.
Yeah.
So I can only speak from my experience, but they've grilled me specifically.
Got it.
Yeah. So it's not like, how much do you make a year? Like, it's like, tell me about your previous projects. How have you turned this property around? Usually how it works is you acquire the property, undervalued asset, likely mismanaged. Again, we're talking net operating. So it has a low net operating income, and you have to go there and basically clean it up, right? And then that's how you clean up the building. You're like, okay, well, now I got all the drug dealers out. All the craziness is done. I cleaned it all up. Go back to the bank and show them a nice, clean product. And then you get your burr, right?
Yeah.
Unlike single family where you like change the floors and walls, and then you're like, okay, here's a new product. It's a different type of burr. You're showing them numbers versus
it seems like one's a market emotionally based product, whereas the other one is performance based.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
So I dabble in multifamily and flips. I haven't done a flip in a while because of the market conditions, but I love flipping houses because it's an emotional business. So you can also tap into those buttons, right? You want me to paint the walls for you? Sure. Like, you want me to do this and that's going to make you happy, emotion? Sure. And then that's a profitable business as well.
Yeah.
However, multifamily, pure logic. And you're dealing with a completely different buyer pool. So you want to just, show them numbers. At the end of the day, it's very black and white. Does this work for me? Does it not?
Yeah.
Pure numbers.
You mentioned prior in our conversation that if somebody is considering doing a project of their own and they want to leverage this opportunity through MLI, that there's two approaches. One, they can do like a full teardown, or if they have an empty plot of land, they can look at new construction. And the other one is renovating or rehabbing and working with existing bones. So like, taking something that has maybe 5 or 6 units, but there's enough meat in the project so that you can maybe double it or add another 4 or 5, right? Maybe you have an illegal unit and you want to convert them all into legal units. Would that qualify?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So as long as you have 5 or more units, I'm almost certain the loan has to be $1 million or more, and you have to have a net worth of $100K or more. Like that's like bare bones minimum. To be honest,
have a net worth of $100K.
Yes.
Okay, sure. So like
right. So like anyone who's done it for a little bit in real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Like $100K, like 2 years ago, sure, everyone like in real estate had $100K, but now maybe not. Right. Yeah. So it's like the product isn't meant for like the everyday person. It's for people who are really moving the needle on housing. Right, like five units is like the bare bones minimum. Yeah. But yes, you do qualify on 5 units and above. If you did what you just said, you wanted to add more units, and they're legal, they have to be legal. Another thing is that the lifespan of the building needs to be 5 years more than the amortization period.
Okay.
So if you have a really old building and the appraiser says you have 40 years of life, so
that's interesting.
Yeah, so then you don't get the 50-year am, right? So you need to have an appraiser you need to have an appraisal that says whatever your amortization is, 50 years, it needs to say 55. And for reference, a brand new building typically has 60 years. Okay. So if you have an older asset, it's hard for you to get a 55-year lifespan unless you deck it out.
Okay, let's qualify this for a second because actually, you know what? Let's use a real example. I have that property I was telling you in like the north end of Hamilton. I think that building was said to have been constructed in like the 40s or something like that, or the 50s, right? It was clearly commercial, and it has like steel beams for supports. Like it's not brick held up kind of thing. It's like there's brick structure, but what's holding everything up is all like the steel beams.
Yeah.
So it's a solid structure. It's really good. What I am unsure about is whether or not it makes sense to tear the property down or whether it makes sense to just renovate it and add units. Like the city recognizes this, and this is interesting because, when we're talking about grandfathering in or when there's these old buildings that were something else, right now this building is recognized as like a duplex by the city. And it's like it's like 8 units or something, right? Like it has a lot more units.
Yeah.
Since this program exists, we're just like, what should we do? Should we now like leverage this opportunity to improve it? What do you think we should do? Tear it down? When is it more worth it to tear it down, rebuild it, or let's just say rehab it to more units?
Well, I think that what you should do is increase the value of the land as much as possible. I think you were telling me you can have probably 20 units in there. So if I were you, if it's cash flowing right now, I would just let it do its thing, go through the city process and take the time. It's going to take a year, 2 years, I don't know, however long Hamilton takes, have them approve you for those 20 units that you're projecting. Because once that's approved, the land value just exploded. You went from a duplex to now a potential 20-unit building. Now you're dealing with people with deep pockets, right? Once you have that approved, then you can actually, go to your next step, which is like, should we actually build 20 units or should we sell the land to a big guy that's willing to buy 20 units? It's going to be a hell of a lot more profitable probably for you to just go to the city and sell it as is than to tear it down and build it yourself in terms of time versus money, because it's going to take you a lot of time to build that.
Okay, so now you're talking about it like an investor. You're talking about it in terms of like, okay, if your opportunity cost in terms of money having to be fronted sometimes to be put into the project and also the time that it's going to take. So just sell it off to somebody else. Would getting that approved need you to go and do the drawings for a proposal for like building 20 units? Because like, for example, in our case, if we were to do 22 units, 24 units, these would be like 350 square foot units,
right?
Which are tiny, really tiny.
Sure.
Do you have to go through that, or is this just like a survey and then doing zoning adjustments?
I have limited experience in this. However, I'm going through something right now. How the process works, at least in London, is you have to rezone the property first, and then you have to go through city planning. They give you a recommendation, yes or no. Once the recommendation is yes, I think like the planners, let's assume they agree that you can have 20 units in there, then you go to council, and then council then they're the ones who have the final say. So you have to basically go to the government, the municipal government, and have them approve 20 units. Let's assume they did, then that's the rezoning process.
The city is doing their own zoning adjustment to the neighborhood, but does that mean that we still have to apply?
It's hard for me to answer that because I don't know what your plan is, right? Like, do you need liquidity right now? If you
No, to position it for what you said. You said like do the zoning change, and like get it so that it's
I would do that
good to
for
go.
sure. I would do that 100%.
But they're doing the zoning change.
Just make sure. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah.
I would just make sure that what you think is happening.
Yeah.
Right. Just be like, oh, so you're telling me like 50 units or 25, whatever. Like, make sure you get it on paper, right? Because I've seen it happen where they like change their minds or it's not documented and then it's like poof, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you guys are working on, I highly recommend you get it all documented.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's incredible. That's going to explode your land value.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what
we talked about this too. Real estate ultimately comes down to the land value increasing over time.
Yeah.
The asset, all it's doing is just paying for that piece of land as it grows over time. That's what market appreciation is.
Yeah.
Market appreciation is just land value going up over time. So yeah, that's incredible, man.
But here's the thing is I'm also in a position where I can raise a pretty decent amount of capital, especially if we have a project like this going on. Let's just say we want to build 25 units, right? And we get some adjustment to do them at, let's say, 500 square feet. 500 square feet, let's just say 25 units, and then we can add some like, common space construction, whatever. That's 12,500 square feet. Let's add that at $350 a square foot.
Yeah. The city might require you to have things that you might not want, but they might require you to have. Like, I'm not saying they're going to do this, but potentially underground parking or amenities. They might want you to have a pool room or like seriously, like shit you don't want, but like they might require you to do that. You might have to add a little bit more costs because of the city's requirements.
Got it.
But like the general premise.
But in and around $4.5 million is what you'd raise. But the thing is that from an investor group, that money, should they know that this is already an approved project and that you can go through the MLI project under certain conditions, because you're going to go for pre-approvals, this money becomes very, relatively speaking,
attainable
and not so expensive because everything is already laid out. It's a government program. It's not like you're borrowing money for something that is no longer standardized. This is a standardized program.
You need to ask yourself how much headache is involved, how much time and headache, because that's what you're going up against. Like, if it's going to take you 3 years, could you have used, like, spitballing numbers here, but let's say the land value is worth $2 million. Yeah. Right? I'm assuming you have, like, are you willing to share, like, your debt on it?
Like, there's no debt.
There's no debt on it. What the hell? That's crazy. You're a young guy. Not like an old Greek guy, man. Guys with no debt.
No, there's no debt on this building.
Yeah, there's no debt on it. It's like, one, you can do this yourself, raise money, pain in the ass to build. It's your first time, I think.
Probably also finance it through the building.
Like through the land value or?
Yeah, through the property itself.
Sure, but you still have to manage the project for 3 years. So that's option one. So like, let's say the land value is now worth $2 million. Again, I'm spitballing numbers, right? But you can option one, get $2 million, put that into how many different assets? Let's say you can buy like $500K per asset. You buy 4 assets. Yeah. Right? So now you have 4 assets that are like $500K would get you $2.5 million asset.
Commercial.
Yeah, commercial, exactly.
Yeah.
So now you can have, times 4, that's $10 million worth of property. Sure, you have debt on it. You guys are young, like you have time to pay the stuff off, right?
So or just pay it off through the rents,
Yeah, or exactly, pay it off through the rents. But yeah, you have the option to either buy 4 assets or have the one over those 3 years. So over 3 years, if you had $2 million, can you buy 4 assets? Like, yeah, probably. Yeah. Right? So that's why I asked myself is like time and money, right? Over those 3 years, let's say, or 2 years, let's say it takes you to do this, you can probably make more money off the 4 assets than the one. Okay. And it's way less headache, right? You're like, oh, here's this land, bang, $2 million. Yes. You're out.
Okay, I understand. But like, just for the sake of also like the audience understanding like how it would work, should they choose to lean in and just do it, right? Because now we're also talking about, okay, do we take the existing structure and renovate it versus tear it down and rebuild it? Okay.
Right.
So I know that you lean a little bit more, especially because of how capital intensive it can be.
Yes.
If you don't want to raise money, you want to do it yourself, you have some money to put into it, how much can you reasonably afford with only a reasonable amount of headache to maybe rehab it into more units?
At least at this point in my career, and certainly anyone who's like who's not like too big should always lean towards renovation because it's a fraction of the cost, especially in today's world. Yeah. And a fraction of the time.
Do you only get to finance the rehab portion of it, or can you finance the whole thing?
I mean, it depends. It's case by case.
You like all illegal units, and then now you make them all legal.
Yeah, you can get financing for that.
For the whole thing.
I don't know exactly what kind of loan values and stuff. I've never done that. I've never gone construction financing, but
no, through the MLI project. I mean, like through the MLI program, like finance it as in like you convert, like let's just say in this particular case, there's like 8-9 units. We could definitely add some more through renovations, and and then now it's going to no longer be a duplex, it's going to be a 9-10plex, whatever. Can we finance it based off of, let's say, a cap rate calculation?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll cap rate at like what, 6%, 5.5?
It depends on how, like, the area, how good it is. It depends on the cap rate in that area. I don't know what the cap rate is here.
So whatever it is.
Sure. But whatever it is, yes, you can. You can value that building on an income approach, which is a cap rate valuation.
Okay, so let's just say if we create, and I just want to spitball numbers here because this will also contextualize it. If somebody if somebody else listening wants to do 10 units at $1,600 rents per unit, right? So that's 16,000. And we're going to multiply that by 12, and we're going to go, what's your favorite number for doing?
The quick and dirty, 60%.
60%. Okay, so we're going to do 60% net operating income. That's 115,000, and we're going to do, for Hamilton, we're going to do, I think, a 5.5 cap, okay? So we're going to divide that by 0.0.
That's probably around right.
That's evaluating it at $2 million.
Yes.
Which for 10 units, that can't be right. That's way too little.
Right. But the cap rate's 5.5. And also, like, the NOI wasn't great either. I think you can probably get better rents than that.
I mean, for 500 units, like 1,600 is pretty, like 1,700 is the average one bed right now. I think 1,800 is the average one.
So is that like a rougher area? Is it like a B class, C class?
C class, yeah.
B class. Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. I think 5.5. I mean, if you were to have this conversation in 2 years ago, cap rates were compressed. They were around like 3 at one point where I'm from. In Toronto, they're obviously lower. Yeah, I think you're somewhere around there.
Okay. I'm just going to type this in because now I need to know now.
Sure.
What is the cap rate?
So CBRE, if you can quickly Google it, or they're one of the most respected anyway. And they have market reports, I believe, every month on each city. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm in London. I look at London often, but it classifies it by asset class. This is all commercial real estate.
Yeah.
So they'll look at like retail, office, multifamily, which is what we're talking, and then they go as granular as multifamily A class, multifamily B class, low rise, high rise.
Yeah.
Like, and then each asset class has a cap rate.
Yes.
So if you want to look at Hamilton's cap rate, that's who I'd recommend you go to.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like no matter how you cut it, you're going to be looking somewhere in and around like the 6%. Like
sure.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Especially for something like that.
But I think the thing to take away here is that would actually be a fraction of the cost to adjust a building like that, essentially to legalize it.
Yeah.
And then you have these rents, and now that's financeable, and that now it's legally financeable, because I feel like the problem that a lot of people have with some of these like makeshift places is that you can't finance it.
Yeah.
So for people who want to convert these multi-units of any form, they can use this program to get liquidity in their project.
Well, they get it at the end of the project.
Yes.
Right? So you get it back, but you have to, like, that's the exciting part. That's your North Star.
But at least now you don't need to have like a buyer exit strategy.
Well, that is your exit strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get your 90%, and then because you have favorable amortization and interest rates.
You're not at 90% necessarily, though. You are at, I mean, depending what you qualify for, you are at 1.1 debt servicing versus 1.2.
Well, yeah, but that's rents.
Your mortgage that you get.
Yeah.
So like the amount of money you get at the end of the project is all relative to your debt servicing.
Yeah. So your debt servicing on that property specifically.
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is that whatever you rent it out for, you can do a debt service ratio on your current rents, which today they're actually very high, as long as you don't go with the affordable rents avenue.
Yeah.
So if you go by today's rents, your debt service will be well more than...
For sure. But then you also need to do one of the 3 pillars, right? You need to do sustainability, accessibility, or affordability to get into the program.
Let's ballpark a picture. And I know I'm trying to make this like easy at a glance kind of thing.
Yep.
But let's just say that we don't touch affordability. We go to accessibility, and we're going environmentally friendly.
Okay, so if you're going to do that, starting next week, you're limited to 80 points, I believe it is. 70 or 80 points. So you won't, already off the bat, you won't get 50 or AM.
What will you get?
45.
45.
Up to 45. So 40 to 45 you'd be looking at, assuming you hit those 2.
Which is still actually pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I think something you should do, and everyone should do, is have a master spreadsheet of their portfolio. In business, we need to have data to make good decisions. Yeah. So for the longest time, I was just like, oh, I think it's like this, or I think my mortgage is that, or my insurance is like 200, 300, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I have it down to every cent. And ever since I did that, absolute game changer.
Yeah, because you can operate it like from like a console, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, it's just legitimizes your business completely. You can make way better decisions. I made way more money because I was making way better business decisions based on my spreadsheets. And now they're super detailed. Like my smallest asset is just a condo I have, which I only have one. Don't buy a condo, by the way. And I even have the income approach on that. It doesn't really work, but I just have it there just to get a feeler for what it's like valued at. I have a 7-unit building. And I mean, feel free to look at this, but like this is a 7-unit building, and like, you know, income, expenses. Right now, my debt servicing is 1.68 at the time, but this is like an 8.3 cap. Like this building's, I don't like investing in rough areas. To be honest, this one's, I got it for 450. I had to buy it. A legal 7-unit. But anyway, I had to buy it. I don't buy it.
Oh, it's legal 7?
It's a legal 7.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, 450. I bought it in 2021. Anyway.
What? In London?
Yeah, dude. It was crazy. It's a crazy deal. a little high. You're not getting shot, but you might have a few shopping.
No, we're Canada.
And they're not grocery shopping either.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You know the type. So that one I bought for 450. The ARV was 1.7 million.
Shit, man.
Yeah.
But this
it sounds like I'm making it up. Like that sounds insane.
No, but again,
it was on the market.
I don't understand, because the thing is that building, if you're buying that for that, it must have not been rented. You must have done work to it a lot.
Of course.
Okay, so that's
significant.
This is where investors lose out, because especially when they have legal performing properties and they don't make them perform. Selling commercial property vacant, not performing, is very different from selling residential vacant, not performing, right? Like selling residential, people want it to be vacant. Selling commercial, ideally you've done the work for them and placed good tenants in there. So your property now, on like an appraisal value, obviously is going to do extremely well.
So that's when things get sensitive, because in Ontario and BC and some of these provinces, no shocker, we have rent control. So it really makes it hard to combine the old rents with today's interest rates. It doesn't work. I don't even know if that's what I'm like, oh, like sensitive, but like you don't necessarily shy away from vacancies in commercial.
Yeah.
Multifamily anyway, because the demand is very high. I mean, it's simple business, right? Like the demand is very high, and then you can determine your rents versus having a legacy tenant where you have to assume their rents, right?
Yeah.
So that's when you have strategies like cash for keys or whatever else, right? And that's when everyone gets up in arms. So.
And this is where a lot of commercial property ends up getting devalued, and because you have tenants in it that you can't move, right? So
yeah, your values can be stagnant for sure. But the thing I like about commercial is, again, you have way more control over your asset.
At least you know what's happening.
What's happening, and like at the end of the day, you can work things out with tenants. I've had I've never like N13 or rent evicted or whatever, but like I always work things out. And if at the end of the day, if they don't want to move, then they don't want to move, and like that's that. Yeah. Some people handle it differently. I try to work it out with them, and it's worked out.
Ideally, you don't have to,
but it's getting harder.
Yeah, I know. For people who are trying to do that, you are really putting yourself in a position where you're fighting against the system, you're going against the tides, and it's like, like maybe look at a different strategy, right? Like
sure. Dude, this isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, again, all this stuff we're talking, like you're hearing it in a podcast or you're seeing it on YouTube or whatever, and all these numbers and everything sounds cool. You need to be a real go-getter. Like I'm extremely tenacious. Like I will do whatever it takes to get the job done. And then it's like, you're like a cage bull. Like you're going to get it done. But not everyone's like that, right? So they hear things like 95% loan of value, 50-year AM, millions of dollars. And everyone's like, whoa, they get blinded by it.
Yeah.
But it's like, hold on a minute. You need a certain mindset to get there to begin with. If you have gotten to a significant place in your life at a young age, it's because you have a certain mindset. So people want to retire and do nothing. Like if the goal is doing nothing, and that's where your mindset's at, you're never going to reach your goal of doing nothing, because you're going to do nothing to get to the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the people who do get access to doing nothing, which by the way, no one does, because they have the mindset of doing a lot. Ever since I reached financial freedom, I used to be obsessed with that term, by the way, financial freedom. And I finally reached financial freedom. I'm busier than ever, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The only difference is now I have control of my time. No one's telling me what to do. I'm here because I want to. I go out to eat because I want to. I do whatever I want because I want to.
Yeah.
Versus being strapped into a seat. That's what I wanted to escape.
Yeah.
And I had the biggest urge to quit my job, man. I am not an employee. Don't hire me. I hope my business does well, because, man, I'm not a good employee.
You'd be a horrible employee. Yeah.
I am not a good employee. I don't like working for people, man.
Yeah.
I like working for myself. I think a lot of people can relate, especially someone listening to something like this. But I want to stress, I spent $1 million. It depends who you ask, right? And that's something I'm learning now. It's like $1 million can be a lot to most people, obviously.
Yeah.
But to some people, it's whatever.
Since you mentioned working right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and you also mentioned, to who is what a lot of money. Okay. What is a lot of money to who? There are some people who are still feeling stuck working right now. They're working their jobs, and they also do have assets. They have real estate, right?
Right.
And a lot of people, especially in Canadian real estate, who have amassed a small portfolio, don't know how to do the monopoly play of switch the green buildings to the red buildings.
I love that.
And I feel that right now, this MLI program, for a lot of people, they feel like this is a solution.
Yes.
Because whether they consolidate assets, liquidate, pull money, whatever it is that they have to do, but just to make something so that, one, they can be a little bit more liquid and they can make a long play. They can still hold this building for long and they don't have to sell the building in order to realize some money so that they can retire or do whatever they want to do and still leave an asset for the children.
I think the answer to that is yes, with an asterisk. I think you shouldn't go into commercial real estate simply because MLI is an option. And the reason I say that is because MLI is constantly changing their rules. So like I'm saying, this week is going to be one thing. Literally next week is going to change. They've already made so many changes along the way. So if your plan is to do, and you're like at the tail end of everything, if you're at 5 units, if you're at $1 million, if you have $100K net worth, if you're at the edge of all these things, I wouldn't go into it because you might end up, they might change the rules on you. They might go, oh, now it's 10 units and above. And then you're like, oh shit, I've been working on this building for however long. And now they just change the rules.
And it's not like a mortgage where you can pre-qualify and hold that rate,
no.
right?
Something that Kellen, I think you had him on here. Yeah. He was mentioning that if a deal is only working on MLI Select, it's probably not a deal, and that's 100% accurate. Yeah, obviously the goal is MLI Select, but you should also underwrite on standard mortgages. Yeah, or at least CMHC standard.
So look at MLI as a bonus.
Yes, it's a nice to have. The same way back in the day, it was like passive appreciation is nice to have. Don't bank on it, but like if it happens, it happens. You should look at MLI the same way.
Got it.
Like underwrite MLI, sure, as your exit strategy, but don't make it your end all be all, because especially if you're new. If you're at the edge of the qualifications, like 5 units, 100, like I wouldn't even consider this, to be honest. Like this is for someone, I would say honestly, who's been in the game for at least like 5 years, went through the pandemic, is financially stable, like knows how to renovate. It's you don't have to be like a super vet, but I think you need to be at least a bare bones an intermediate investor to even like consider this.
Got it.
That's not even considering the mindset you need to have to attack these multifamily buildings.
Yeah.
It's a pressure cooker, man. Yeah. It's a pressure cooker. Like you need to be built different, especially if you don't come from money, if you're not having like mom and dad to help you out. Like if you're doing this on your own, like you need to be a bull. I remember listening to podcasts like this and I'm like, I want to be there one day. Like I want to get there one, like, and eventually I popped out the other side, but I enjoy being in the pressure cooker. Yeah. To some people, I might sound like a lunatic, but I feel like I'm the same way.
Yeah. No, some people work very well in like a little bit of like either a deadline-induced panic or just some kind of pressure, right? It gets you going, and then you get addicted to going.
Exactly. I've been playing golf a lot lately. Yeah. And it's funny because people get addicted to golf. I'm a new golf addict. Yeah. And golf is just frustration, right?
Well, it's because it's very micro adjustments that make worlds of difference.
Exactly.
Right, so.
But I just keep thinking, man, everyone's just addicted to this frustration because everyone goes through it, right? Yeah. Even the good guys, even the pros, like sometimes they have a bad day, but like, yeah, I think it's just funny. Like we just want that. Some people just want it. Yeah. And like lately, I've been using. I'm terrible at golf, by the way. Oh God, it's bad. But anyway, I've been using it as a tool to practice staying stoic and staying cool under stressful situations. So even though I'm just shitting the bed at the golf course, like I'm at least practicing staying cool. So I try to make things as positive as possible, Yeah. I always try to put a positive spin on whatever the situation is. Like honestly, 95% of the time you probably can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's always a positive in the negative, and yeah.
Well, I mean, like, again, I reference this one guy all the time, part of our community, but he introduced me to the idea. I was like, there's 2 ways to fix a problem. You either fix it by, like, actually, like, you can fix the problem, but if it's not big enough, you can also fix it here in your mind.
I love it.
Fix it in your mind or go out and fix the other thing. And sometimes, better for worse, it's easier to fix it here.
For sure.
Either, hopefully, if it's not a serious enough problem, you fix it in your mind. But also sometimes people cheat and it's kind of like contractors who renovate things at their home renovate beautiful things for other people. But then when it comes to their own home, they just fix it in their mind instead of fixing the actual thing.
If you can't change your situation, you have to change your perspective, right?
Yeah. And that's
exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get in touch with you, ask you questions, because, intermediate investors that want to start touching into things like MLI Select, some programs that are available to Canadians that make sense, and want to talk to you about if it makes sense for them, maybe get some tips since you have experiences you do. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You can reach out via Instagram.
Instagram?
Yeah. So my name is Carlos .afanadors. You can reach out to me there, and I'm happy to help out if need be.
Amazing to have you on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.